What I remember is
oh, yeah.
when this hit, the first one. I mean, and when did this come out? Like 2016, 17, something?
Something like that.
Yeah.
15.
15.
Well, it was
okay. Recorded 15.
Yeah, so it came out in 16.
14.
I was there in
You were there.
Oh, okay, so it came out in 15.
What I remember is when it came out, and I mean, Gary and I have been doing this thing together and separately for a long time. I've never seen anything quite like it. I mean, a lot of people flipped, particularly the press, because all this music, all these great tunes Gary wrote, as you point out, years ago, sort of nothing had happened with them for a few years. And so it was sort of like a renaissance, to have that music being played again. And, I mean, it felt great musically, and it just seemed like the timing was good.
I've always favored trios, and Marc and I go back, way back, 1983. We actually met the first time in Seattle. So we have a history, not only a personal history of meeting, but also performing together and playing together in very many different formats: trio, duo, quartet, quintet, recordings, and all this stuff. So all the time that I was with Keith and Jack, Marc and I still were able to do some recordings on our own. And so we have a very long history, musically speaking. So, and I knew that if I ever wanted to start a trio for myself, a piano trio, that he would be the one I would want to play piano. And so the question was, what drummer is going to work? And we went through quite a few drummers.
Yeah, we did.
And Paul Motion came pretty close.
Yeah.
But he was also very busy doing a bunch of things on his own. But it wasn't until we did the Birdland in New York with Joey that it was like, finally, this is the drummer. This is the one. So I called Manfred immediately and said, got to record this. Yeah. And so he set the date up for us to record that first one. And so that's how it started.
I had a tour under my name with basically what became John's Quartet. It was Joey and Drew Gress and John. And Manfred was at a festival we were playing. So he wanted to record the band, and he wanted to record it as John's group, which was fine. John and I had been playing together for a while. I didn't care whose name was on it. And then I think the thing with Gary, that happened like not too long after that, a year or two after that. And it just fell together at the right time. The thing about tunes like, I mean, really any of them, but I'm thinking in particular of Gaia, of Empty Carousel.
Oh, yeah.
And Requiem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gary plays piano. He's pretty good. And a lot better than I play bass, that's for sure. And, the thing is, I mean, he's absolutely terrific at playing free. There's no question about it. But his knowledge of harmony, and I'm speaking as a piano player now, is like unbelievable. And a tune like Gaia, that's like, it's incredible how intricately or perfectly that kind of works, harmonically. And I mean, I've played plenty of tunes we all have by people that don't really work, And that, to me, that's a really interesting thing about another interesting thing about his tunes, because whether it's a free tune or whether it's a more composed tune, that sensibility it's always there lurking somehow in a positive way, you know.
That's a very good point he's bringing up. It gets lost. And it's the distinction that was made. It started being made in the late 50s and continued to be reinforced in the 60s. And the distinction between free jazz and straight ahead or mainstream jazz, as though they were totally different. And what he's pointing out is that they're both come from the same source. It's not like two different sources. So I never get the sense when I've played with Marc that he's playing straight ahead. I never get the sense that he's playing free. I don't get the sense that he's fitting into any mold at all. It's the space that he's coming out of into the music that makes the difference to me. And that is a freedom. That's kind of like orientation. You can't learn that. That's something that precedes learning of any kind. But it's important to notice that somebody had asked me before, it's like, well, how does it feel like when you're playing with Albert Eiler and Don Cherry and Sonny Murray? I mean, that's all free stuff, and then you do something with Keith that's not free. That doesn't make any sense to me. Yes, the form, the way that it appears in sound will be different. The expression is being different, but it all comes from the same place. But I mean, I've never looked at it that way. It's that the whole, what's being presented to me in terms of what I'm going to play in my hearing depends a lot on what's, in fact, 99% of it depends on what's around me. So what's around me in the first recording was a guitar. And what's around me in the second recording is piano and drums. So that creates a reorientation that I don't think about. That just happens naturally. So there's resonance there that is different, but there wasn't any intent to make it sound different. That's none of my business. So, there's a quip that comes close to it. And Sonny Rollins was quoted as saying this. I've heard Miles say the same thing. It's like, and basically you have two choices when you're playing. And you can either play that or it can play you. And my orientation is always being played by it, not me playing that. Well, if it is playing you, then what you are doing is making yourself available to everything around you. You're not going to impose something on your surround. You're not going to be the author. You can't claim authorship. It's like, this is mine, because there's too much coming in from, uncountable sources to bring that about. So it's the difference in playing with something like Gaia, doing that with the guitar, and then doing it with Marc, for example, piano and Joy and drums. That changes everything. Now, if you were to ask me what changes, we could go on for the next 5 years about that, and nothing would come out of it. They just always come back to, it's different. It's a different setup. It's like Marc. I've heard Marc play solo. He doesn't play that when we were playing together. It's a different milieu. It's a different context in which one is performing.
The way I think of it is, you play what's happening. You don't play what was happening like last week or the last group or whatever. You play what's happening. And this is the great thing about making music with Gary. I mean, he's all about that. And not just the way he plays, the way these tunes are. I mean, I have had conversations with musicians. It's no secret. You go to play somebody's music and they have this accordion of pages of a tune, right? Like 7, 8 pages, 9 million notes. And I'm thinking, why? You know? And boy, if you had to pick the spiritual opposite of that, it's Gary's tunes. I mean, they're really concise, you know. They make their point. They make it in the most direct and clear way, and then they get out of the way and they just say, okay, here it is, see what happens. This is no easy thing to write a tune like that. I always think of it as like, you know, writing a really good haiku. You know, it's tough. And these tunes they really got that. So
it's a difference between, in a way, it's like we have, when we think of a word called thinking, you know, there is an aspect of thought that is absolutely silent. So it's devoid of syntax in terms of language, like language has syntax. But there's a way of listening and orientating to music in which you're listening with your mind, not your thinking. But it's silent. You're basically embedded in silence, and you're allowing this to come out of the silence. You play one note, or Marc can play one chord, and just the way that his hands come down on the keyboard and make that chord. I'm hearing the sound, but I'm hearing beyond that. There's something else going on there that I can't put into words or articulate or rationalize or conceptualize or anything like that. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm listening to. That's what has significance. The actual notes, if you transcribed his soul or something, it's just notes on a page. Right? But that isn't what I listen to. Well, that's not what inspires me. And I hear that in his compositions and his playing. You know, there's a willingness to be vulnerable. Instead of being in control, be vulnerable. Allow it to happen to you, rather than you trying to perform it. I mean, a lot of young players that I've heard, just not intensively, but they're very skilled, great technique, complete command of their instrument. They can play any tempo and changes, forms. Spent a lot of years practicing all that, and I listen to them and I'm left cold. It's like it's not doing anything for me. And then you play me one bar of Lester Young, and I sigh. I'm like, you know, what happened? What's the difference? You know, and so it's an orientation that is, in some sense, is being lost. It isn't the orientation that Marc and I came up through. We're basically, I think, we're basically from an oral tradition, not from a book learning tradition.
That's for sure.
Not theory tradition, right?
That's for sure. You remember the first time we played together?
Yeah, in Seattle.
In Seattle. I come out there, right? And I'm like, the club owner said, "Who do you want to play with?" And he said, "Jerry Granelli's out here." I said, "Great." And either he mentioned you or I did, and he said, "Okay." And I hung up the phone, and I immediately thought, what have I done? You know, because I'm going out to play with this legendary cat. So anyway, I go out. Jerry's banging his drums together, and Gary's warming up, playing just incredible stuff. So I just sort of slink behind the piano and sit there. And, you know, I couldn't have been more nervous. And then Gary hits a note. So I hit a chord, just, you know, I'm not even looking at him, right? I'm bent down. And he hits another note. I hit another chord, and we both look up, and we're both smiling. And I mean, that was it. And basically, we kind of been doing that for the last 3-4 decades, however long that's been.
You can't learn it. You just have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to allow that space to be there. Looking at the tradition about how we came up, I mean, particularly in my case, how did I learn a tune? And the way I learned a tune was by dictation, not by paper. Nothing was written down. Somebody would say, do you know this tune? What tune? And he'll play it. Now you play it. No paper, nothing. That's the last thing you do. What you have to do is use your ears and listen with them. So you're listening. Not reading, not conceptualizing. All the conceptualization, all that stuff, that came after the fact. And that doesn't mean to minimize the value of music theory or study or anything like that. But it definitely needs to be looked at in terms of what it has to offer and the limitations of it. Because, I mean, just even today you see schools, we can teach you how to improvise. And it's like, run for your life. Get away from that one as fast as you can. Because we show you all these different lines we play over the chords, all these scales to go with the chords. We can teach you how to improvise. We can teach you how to do this. It's like, well, if you want to be a trained SEAL, okay, you can know how to balance a ball on your nose. But you can't teach it.
As you go through life, if you're going to grow into whatever you're doing, it involves a lot of openness, a lot of being open to what's happening, what works, what doesn't work. Some days you're good at it, some days you're not, But as long as I feel you're open to approaching it like that, you can keep doing it. I mean, I don't know if you get better or worse, but you keep doing it and somehow it feels like you're getting somewhere with it. But it's not like learning something out of a book. You know what I mean? So in a way, in an odd sort of way, the question is, do you feel like you're any better at it? Well, I mean, the first 10 seconds we played together was terrific, Has everything we've played together been terrific? No. Has a lot of it been? I like to think so. Certainly felt good. But the point is, it's like asking a couple, are you any better at this than you were 20, 30 years ago? Well, we're working on it, And that's, I mean, personally to me, music kind of feels like a work in progress.
Yeah. Work in progress.
Yeah, do you have it now? Well, no, but I'm working on it.
Yeah.
If I got to the point where I could say, yeah, I got it, I'd be worried.
I would never play with you
I'm
again.
saying, I would be very worried about what had happened to my head.
Nah, we'd be friends, but we would never.
Yeah. Work in progress. And interestingly enough, the musicians like Gary, like John Abercrombie, the late John Abercrombie, whom I hit it off with and had a connection with, that vibe is there, If somebody has the other kind of vibe, it's like oil and water,
And Miles said, I know what you're playing. I want to hear what you don't know. That's very, very direct. It's if you're not aspiring toward that, then you might as well hang it up or be a teacher or a record producer or a lawyer.
I mean, as a piano player, classic thing that happens once in a while, you get to the instrument, there's a couple notes out of tune. I mean, bad, So, to me, the only way to deal with it is find other stuff to play. But I'm kind of trying to do that anyway. And the guy I first heard this from, you remember Keeter Betts?
Yeah.
Bass player? Yeah. I used to work with Keeter when I lived in Washington, D.C.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was the original bassist in the Wynton Kelly Trio.
Right.
And then he got married, fell in love, moved to Washington, and Paul Chambers ended up in the trio. Keeter said, he said they got to a club one night, and he said a lot of notes were out of tune. And he said, you never would have known. He said, went and found his way around and just found other stuff.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're going to go play the same old stuff, I mean, it's not even a question if it's going to sound boring. It ain't going to sound right because some of these notes are out of tune.
Right.
So you got to decide, am I going to adjust or am I going to just play what I already know? And I sort of prefer work in progress, you know.
What happens is you begin to live your life like that. It's not just the music. Your life turns out that way. You know, this is what is. Okay, if this is what is, then what's next? Don't try to make it be anything other than what it is, you know. So it's, I'm really grateful for, I mean, I think how fortunate I am personally just to have been able to be alive in this lifetime and to have had the opportunities I've had musically. I was born with a little bit of a gift that encouraged me enough to continue to explore it and develop it. But those kinds of experiences are the only ones that really have sustained my life, you know, since as long as I can remember.